The country house was on a lonely road outside of the village Våsby. The little piece of land was overgrown with trees and surrounded by fields that laid fallow for the winter. The house seemed forgotten. The weeds in the front yard had swallowed broken furniture, rusted bicycles, a toppled-over fridge, and even a car was tangled in wild grass, growing through the engine and in through the doors. The afternoon was eating the daylight a minute at a time, even faster than the day before. Next to the house, a barn seemed ready to fall over at any moment. It seemed to hold out only to spite the howling wind that constantly came in from the shallow Wadden Sea. The closest neighbor lived a couple of 100 meters down the low-traffic road. Anna had seen a little old lady in the window, eyeing them as they slowly drove by in the police car. Another Danish police car was parked in front of the crime scene, and a single police officer stood outside and looked uneasy. Their colleague almost disappeared in his puffy winter uniform. He was shifting his weight back and forth like he was afraid to be swallowed by the wild garden if he stood too still. When they stepped out of the car, the cold made their breaths into little clouds. The local officer approached them. "Hans Krogh," he introduced himself. "Anna Hooks, and this is my partner, Carl Mortensen." She presented them to the local officer and then right away asked, "Who found them?" "Coworker of hers, we estimate 48 hours after the incident. Did you get the report I sent?" "Yep," Anna answered and waved her tablet. Carl got out the fabric suits from the back of the squad car and handed one to Anna. He also handed her a professional camera, which she hung around her neck. "Let's get to it before the sun goes down," Carl said. "Forensics were already here, right?" she asked. "No." "So the bodies are still in there?" she asked and put on a mask. "Since it's one of those gang cases, we agreed that we shouldn't make the forensics come all the way down here." "Carl, call Sarah. Her team needs to get here as fast as possible." Carl stepped away from them and called the leader of the regional forensics team. While Anna stepped into a fabric suit, she asked, "Why do you draw the conclusion that this is gang-related?" A wave of nausea made her dizzy when she lifted her foot, and she put a hand on the squad car. "The man in there was in the clink a couple of times. Gang-related activities like break-ins, smuggling drugs over the border. He also emptied a can of pepper spray, emptied it, into another guy's face in a grocery store." "He sounds like a party," Anna commented. Carl hung up and said, "They'll be here first thing in the morning." "You'll be here to let them in, right?" Anna asked Krogh. "When is that exactly?" 6:30, Carl answered and sipped his fabric suit. "Ready?" Anna asked and handed him the camera. Carl nodded. "After you," she said. It reminded her of when she had been the first one to enter. Her former partner Victoria's dark red lipstick shaping the words, "Go on," back when Anna still had no idea what crossing that threshold meant. Carl took an establishing shot off the door and said, "Windows on door shattered, possibly upon entering." When they entered, shards of glass on the tiles gave off a crisp sound under their boots. They were met by a hallway with 3 open doors and a staircase to the upper floor at the end. The flowery tapestry had damage from years of moisture, and the floor was littered with shoes and jackets, some hanging and some just thrown about. Officer Krogh coughed at the smell when he entered behind them. His voice was almost a whisper when he said, "Go take a look," and pointed at the first open door. Anna noticed his reluctance and said, Can you stay by the door and make sure that nobody enters while we're in here?" The local officer seemed relieved and said, "I'll be right out here if you need me." "Thank you," Anna said. Crime scenes were not for everyone. The tiles in the hallway had probably been a grayish-white when they were new, but now they were filled with mud and grime. Many were cracked, and a few were even missing, leaving the floor to look like rotten teeth. "Carl, where do you want to start out?" Carl went to the first door and looked down the raw concrete stairs. Anna noticed a blood spatter on the wallpaper at the top of the stairs. She made a mental note of it. She wanted Carl to look closer at it afterwards. "Let's start with victim 1, he said, and swallowed hard in front of her before he started walking down the steep staircase with carefulness in every step. Anna tried to swallow excessive saliva that was forming in her mouth and followed. In the basement, a dark island of blood had spread on the carpeted floor from the head of the deceased. Nobody had yet dared to gather evidence and get the bodies removed, and it made the crime scene even more blood-curdling. But at least this time, it was not a child. "That's an alternative use of Christmas lights," Carl commented. The woman had a chain of Christmas lights wrapped around her neck. Some of the lights were even broken, and some still had lights in them. "The batteries have lasted a long time." Anna gagged. She held her hand over her mouth and fiddled with her mask. "It's okay," Carl said. "I hate beige carpets too." Old toys and children's clothing were piled in the basement. Some things were packed in cardboard boxes, but most things were just in piles. Years of damp and darkness had made dark spots on a doll's skirt. A disapproving teddy bear with only one eye seemed to have soaked up the moisture and was probably moldy to its core. "It seems that this blood has been smudged here. Just a bit. Do you see?" Carl looked at Anna and pointed to the carpet. Anna pulled her mask off and bolted towards the stairs, but she didn't make it and threw up on the carpet. "Whoa," Carl said and handed her a Kleenex. "I don't know what happened," Anna stammered, still bent over. With the Kleenex, she wiped her face and hands. "Are you okay?" Carl asked. Anna straightened up. "Yeah, it must be a flu or something." "Maybe you should go for some fresh air," Carl said. "No, I'm fine," Anna answered. "You don't have a bottle of water on you, right?" "Nope, in the car, sorry," Carl answered with a concerned wrinkle on his forehead. The stale basement room was lit by a naked light bulb, covered in cobwebs. Anna scanned the room with a professional eye, no blood spatters on the walls or floor beside the bleeding. "Okay, Carl, how would you approach this?" Carl pursed his lips, as he always did when he was thinking. "I would start looking at it as a layer search. Has someone been down here since she fell?" "Nice, go ahead," Anna said, and smiled a little. It wasn't often that she could let Carl unleash his knowledge like this. She remembered how much she had learned on that first case with Victoria. She had let Anna take the lead, and somehow she always turned back to that time when she was looking for answers. "It seems that this blood has been smudged over here. Just a bit, do you see?" Carl looked at Anna and pointed to the carpet, where an unclear shoe print was pressed into the bloodied carpet. She came closer and said, "You're right." "She's been strangled," Carl said. "Would seem like it," Anna agreed and put down an evidence marker at the blinking Christmas lights, tangled around the victim's throat. Carl took a picture. The woman on the floor was lying face down. She was wearing jeans and a cardigan, and her long dark hair was like a whirlwind spread over her shoulders and the floor. Carl looked closer at her head. Then he looked at Anna. "There is no blood spatter around here." But she does have a head wound, he said. He straightened up, took out the camera again, and took pictures of the deceased. So this is just a guess, but I think that it seems like the way she has her right arm is unnatural compared to the rest of her body. Can someone have moved it? It's possible, Anna agreed. But why? Carl asked. Was she holding on to something? Maybe, Anna answered, and with a foot she turned over a doll, but changed her mind when it stared at her with empty doll eyes, and turned it back to the face-down position. Remember to take a lot of pictures. After the forensics get here, it won't look the same again. Carl crouched down and took a couple of pictures of the clutter before he meticulously started taking pictures of the victim from all angles. Great. Anything else down here? Anna asked. We'll let the forensics look under the body, right? Carl said. Yep, Anna answered. Exactly. We don't want to destroy forensic evidence, Carl said, as if he had memorized it from a textbook. And frankly, we don't want to start yanking at a somewhat decomposed body, he said and laughed thinly. Right. Okay, let's go, Carl said and started walking up the stairs again, the concrete adding a slight crunch to his footsteps. Anna took one last look and was happy to follow her partner upstairs. Carl was already looking into the next door when Anna got to the top of the stairs. But she stayed next to the blood spatter. I'll give him a chance, she thought. This seems to be the kitchen, Carl said, and looked at Anna. And then he noticed her face. What did I miss? Anna was still silent, and Carl came closer. How could I walk right past that? He said, when he noticed the blood spatter. Twice, Anna said and elbowed him mockingly in the side. At least I held down my lunch, Carl said and elbowed her back. That's between you and me, Anna said. Well, and the forensics, she added. Carl measured some of the spatters with a measuring tape. Seems like medium velocity, Carl mumbled and turned to look at Anna when he said, Then it would possibly be human force, blunt object. Anna nodded, impressed with her young partner. One can only guess that the victim has fallen down the stairs because of a blow to the back of her head. Anna looked at the blood on the wall and said, Look at the blood on the wall again. Carl looked at it again, and then he said, When on this side it must have been done by someone who's left-handed. Yes, but look at the pattern, Carl. Carl pursed his lips and looked closely. Then Anna said, It seems like she was hit twice. Oh, Carl said. But with what? Well, let's move on. We might find out. I think that's shoe prints, Carl said and pointed at the floor, right at the beginning of the tiles, after the stairs. Yes, Anna agreed, and they both kneeled next to the bloody shoe print on the tiles. Seems like it's leaning towards that door, Carl said, referring to the slant that the 3 shoe prints made towards the door on the opposite side of the hallway. Carl took an establishing shot and close-ups of each shoe print. Then he said, Should we go in there? Sure, Anna said and followed Carl through the open door to the kitchen. Carl furrowed his brow and said, I don't think they cooked a lot of homemade meals. In the kitchen there was a door leading further into the house. The dining table was piled with circulars, newspapers, and clothes. I really hope the clothes are clean, Anna said and looked at Carl with a disgusted wrinkle on her nose. The drawers and cupboards were opened, and most of the contents were thrown through the windows and out on the front lawn. Carl took pictures of the empty cupboards and the broken windows. The checked linoleum flooring was crispy with sand and crumbs. Is it so hard to vacuum? Anna was disgusted with the condition of the kitchen. How can people live like this? She thought as her eyes slowly went over the piles and piles of dirty dishes. A pile of dish towels was thrown on the stove. Did someone try to burn the house down? Carl asked, and looked closer at the bundle of dish towels on the stove. Then he looked at Anna. Can I lift it? Yes, you have gloves on. It should be okay. Carl carefully lifted the towels. They were slightly burned underneath. Arson? He asked. It must have turned off or something. Anna made an uncertain grimace and said, I've heard that the new stoves and ovens turn off after 12 hours. Carl shrugged. Sounds likely. He held up the camera and took pictures of the dish towels and asked Anna to hold them for him to take pictures of the burned underside. Then slowly they moved through the next door in the kitchen and into the living room, where the second victim was sprawled on the floor. The living room had the same beige carpeting as the basement and a large couch. That couch died a long time ago, Carl commented. Why did someone bother to throw the TV through the window? Why wouldn't they steal it if they were going to bother moving it? Anna pondered. In the middle of everything, the second murder victim was lying halfway on his side and halfway on his back. 2 bullet wounds had spread oceans of blood on his white t-shirt and the beige carpet below. Suppose this is 56-year-old Robert Hansen, shot once in the chest and once in the stomach with his own rifle. Carl read from his tablet. Whoops, and I think we found the other murder weapon, Anna said, and squatted down next to a bloodied iron. Anna stood up and noticed a substantial dent in the yellow wall. It's been thrown, she said. She put down an evidence marker. It's an iron, Carl said when he kneeled next to it. You know, for ironing clothes. I know what it's for, Anna said. Carl took pictures of the newfound evidence before he went back to the body.